Darcy, welcome to the Virtual CMO podcast. I'm so glad you could join us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited for this conversation too. I love talking about digital marketing, and that's where I'd like to get started. I'd like to hear a little bit about your background. How did you get involved in digital marketing?
Ooh, okay.
Yeah,
Well, I went to school for what was called at the time computer graphic technology. So, it started around when websites were kind of becoming a thing. And I was into graphic design, which rolled into marketing. And then it rolled into obviously needing to be found online. And I kind of fell in love with the niche of SEO, which is search engine optimization, and helping people get found online with their ideal target audience.
that's really interesting. It's such a booming field right now because so many businesses really need help in building out their online presence and being discovered. And there's so many digital marketing channels, right, that they have to choose from. And I really wanted to kind of down into this a little bit more with you today because I know you focus on several different areas in terms of being ranked and being found. And so I'd kind of like to dive into each with a little bit more detail. So let's start out with the basic, your website. So
Yes.
that's your placeholder right on the internet. That's how so many businesses get found. What do you think businesses just right from the start are doing wrong? What are they not doing?
Ooh, well, first off, with your website, you have to have your tech in check. And what I mean by that is your website has to be mobile friendly. It has to load quickly. You have to have an SSL certificate on it. And you've got to, as soon as somebody lands on your website, they've got to know what you do and how to navigate through your website to be successful.
Do you think businesses focuses too much on having a big website, lots of pages, lots of content, or for a lot of the clients that you work with, you see just the opposite? There's just not enough there.
So usually at the beginning, there just isn't enough there, because if you are in a very competitive arena, like let's just say you're a florist, or if you're something common, you're going to have a lot of competition. So you need to have a build out where you can really focus on some of your core keywords, keyword phrases that you want to rank for in Google. And by just having only a few pages, it really limits your ability to do that.
So let's dive into that a little bit more with your example of a florist. What would be some of the key things that you think a small business like that should have on their website for it to be successful?
Well, absolutely testimonials. In addition to that, what is it they offer? If they're doing weddings, if they're doing specific events, they should really have specific pages catering to those items. So that way they can go into more detail. So when I Google florist, if I'm looking for flowers for an event, for example, I know that I'm going to connect with you better, or that florist better, because they specifically offer that. It's not just a general only one time mentioned on the site somewhere where I have to search to find it that you do events.
It's interesting. I just released a podcast episode today, and I was interviewing a guy by the name of Alan Currens who has a band. So he's
Mhm.
developed a business where he actually has a couple of bands that go around and play events and whatnot. But one of the things that I thought was so interesting is the website that he had developed for his company really expressed a lot of emotion. It made you feel like you were part of a performance. It generated excitement. And don't you think that's the same with, let's take this flower shop again. It's not just about a product, it's about how that product might fit into your world or make you feel.
Absolutely. It's like you probably, I don't know if you've ever heard the example of a pizza parlor. They're not selling really a slice of pizza. They're selling the envisioning of having your family around the table and everybody sharing that experience of eating the pizza. So really you do want to hone in on, you know, your website. I think 10, 15 years ago it was just like a little brochure online, and now it really is that virtual connection. So you've got to, adding those special elements really sets you apart from your competition.
So you've got your basic search engine optimization. You've got to get the technical pieces right. Like you said, your SSL certificate. You've got to get your pages to load quickly.
Mhm.
Talk then a little bit about the importance of having a blog and having regular content, things that are updated frequently.
Okay. So the way I like to word it is somebody comes to your core website because they want to learn more about you and your brand, what you offer. They usually end up on your blog because they want to know more about that topic. Positioning yourself as a topic authority leader, you can do that easily through your blog. So if you've got a blog on a specific topic, and as you've got the blog laid out, you can include an internal link that's going to link them back to a product or service that's related to the content on the blog, but you've got two different users, right? Like two different visitors, two different, completely different mindsets. And you want to be able to position yourself in a way to connect with both of those types of people that are coming to your website. In addition to the fact of our friend of content marketing and social media, you want to be able to have new, fresh content so you've got reasons to reach out and connect with people and share your information.
One of the things that I've seen, and I'm sure you've seen this with businesses too, is that they go down this process of writing blog content, and sometimes they're actually successful and that blog content ranks, but it's content that's sort of irrelevant to their products or services. It doesn't really help their business.
You've got to reel back on that. Yes, I see that, and then I feel like it's the newsletter where all they do is once a month they put their newsletter on the blog. No, 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 no. Let's move back and let's say, what are the top 3 to 5 questions that you get asked all the time? If you start building out content based on questions people are asking you regarding and as they relate to the products and services that you offer, it's going to give you a lot more of ideas about what to write that's actually going to be useful content that people are going to want to consume.
I love that. Take the information that you're already getting from your customers, from your prospects, and put that out into content to sort of answer their questions before they even ask them.
Yeah, so let's go back to that florist example. Like you could do a blog post on how to keep your flowers living longer, right? Like let's just say you get an arrangement from a florist. And so the blog post could be like 5 tips to keep your flowers lasting longer. Well, one, again, it's going to position you as like, hey, we know we're here to help you, but also if you get our flowers and you follow these directions, they're going to last longer. So you're going to think we're better. So, it's got kind of a couple different value adds there. And then, when maybe you talk about specifically about roses and it links back to the page on your website where you've got an order form for roses or, you know, whatever. Um, Honestly, I haven't worked with any florists, so I'm just kind of throwing that one
Right.
out
Well, me
there, but
neither. So that's good for both of us.
that you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Yeah. And what do you think about ways on the website then for people to contact you? Do you advocate for all of your customers to have a contact form? Would you rather somebody call you in on the phone? What do you suggest that people do there?
So it depends on how they want to connect with their audience. Chat forms have become huge. Just having that little icon in the bottom, whether you have somebody manning it or not, it gives you that almost instant gratification to the person visiting your website where, oh, I got my, maybe you didn't really connect with somebody. Maybe it's a bot that pushes you in the right direction. So that's nice. Of course, there's always chat forms, depending on the business. Some people love to be people that close over the phone, so they would much prefer for people to call in. Other people prefer to have information gathered about the potential prospect before they get on the phone with them so that it's a better use of everybody's time. So it really depends what's best for you.
Okay, so now we've got our website optimized. We've created some great blog content. Now we need to push it out there, right? SEO takes time. You can't just write a blog and expect that people are magically going to show up the next day and start reading it. So you've got to prime the engine a bit. You've got to get it out there. So now you've got all these social media channels that you have to pick from. How do you help businesses decide where they should focus their efforts? Because ideally, you can say, well, do it on all of them, right? Maximize your exposure. But that's a lot of time. Each one is slightly different. They require different size images, articles. You can't tag people consistently in one over the other. It's difficult. So talk a little bit about how you help people rank on social media.
Okay. So social is a different animal, right? And first off, we talk about findability. So as we've seen, new platforms come up and they come up and they come up. What we suggest to people is whether you plan on owning a social media platform or not, go ahead and grab onto that URL. Like, right, just go ahead and Facebook, boom, make sure that somebody can find you on Facebook. Twitter, even if you say, we're not active on here, but here's our contact information. Or join us on our social site where we constantly push out information. But go ahead and claim those spots before your competition does. In regards to that, like let's just say there's two companies called Redbooks. Go ahead and grab the facebook.com Redbooks, grab Instagram, grab it before somebody else does, even if you're just using it as a placeholder for findability. Then, and plus, especially as new platforms begin to emerge, because they will, you want to just grab onto it. If you're not going to use it or if it fizzles out, it's okay. But you'd rather have it before somebody else. It's like your website. You have a URL that you wanted to get for your website, and it could have been that you had a really great one in mind, but it was already taken. So findability, grab them all. Then go back to what we call your buyer persona, your ideal customer avatar. It goes by a couple different names. You should clearly have identified who your target audience is, and that will tell you where they are online through social media, and that should become your hub. Typically, you'll find that maybe it's Facebook and Instagram are your hotspots, but it's still good to include content on LinkedIn, depending on, again, are you B2B, are you B2C, who you're trying to target. And then what we suggest is using a platform buffer, Hootsuite, something to schedule things out so that you don't feel like all of a sudden like, what am I going to do? Feel like there's so many different platforms, there's so many different sizes. You've also got tools like Canva, which help you to make graphics, and they'll also do the resize and redistribute, and they know what sizes work best for each of the platforms. So I think there's a way to systematically do it. I also like the idea of, at the time that you create the blog, go ahead and create those other assets. Go ahead and do your little blurb of how you would share it through the social media sites that you think are most ideal for your target audience, and save that, whether it's in a Google Doc or Word doc or wherever. And then as they're on rotation, because you don't want to just post to social media once, it's not a one and done. Maybe a month later or a couple weeks later, you want to post it a different time. You just copy and paste what you have from your original when your blog was fresh in your mind.
I think that's good because there are so many great free tools out there. Buffer has a free option.
Mhm.
Canva gives away a tremendous amount of functionality at
So
no
much.
cost, and it's great. Um, and there are challenges too. Sometimes you can just post directly from your blog, right? You can have a social share button there. Just
Mhm.
push a button and you can share directly to the social media channels if you've got everything configured correctly so that it shows what you want to show. Because ultimately, the goal is to be driving people back to your website, right? It's to be driving people to where they can make a purchase or find you, not just to build audiences on these channels.
And I think that's sometimes where people get distracted because they look at, let's just take Instagram, where you can't do a link necessarily directly in your post, right? People get so hung up on, well, look at this brand, they're just killing it on Instagram. But is that directly correlating with their sales? So you've got to go back to that. And one thing that you should definitely keep an eye on is your analytics. Your analytics, you can use Google Analytics, you can use Clicky Analytics, which also has a free option. And there's other analytic options that what they do is they not only show you where your traffic's coming from, but also what people are doing once they get to your website. And I think you got to think back to that good old 80-20 rule where it kind of comes down to it in business, and the same goes for your SEO and your social media efforts. When it comes to what you're pushing out, you're going to notice that there's probably 20% of your website or your blog that's really going to generate 80% of the traffic. And when you can hone in on what is it and why is it that those pages are so successful, you can focus your efforts to recreate those in a different way. Obviously, you're not just going to copy and paste and do the same thing, but it'll help direct you into being more successful in a quicker fashion.
Yeah, analytics is so important because I think people look at likes and reshares and try to base their success off those metrics. But especially for more advertising type content, not a pure ad, but things that are designed to be sort of like ads, you're not going to get a lot of engagement that way. You're not going to get a lot of likes. But if people are viewing it, if people are seeing it, if you're leaving that brand impression with them, you
Mhm.
are successful. And I think the other thing that I would add to what you said is I know, for example, we used to use a tool called Ad Espresso for doing Facebook
Yes.
ads, and it would have, you could, I think, do 16 permutations of the same ad, which would be changing the graphics, changing the headline, changing the call to action. And then it would pick a winner after running those 16 variations of it. But it just tells you that if you are running sort of one or two social media posts a week, you are not really developing enough understanding of what's working and what's not working. You need a lot of variety to see what works with your audience.
Absolutely. That's a really good point. Using social media, using ads, you do get that ability to test, okay, what terminology did I use that led to more click-through rates? What words, what images, what colors lead towards more people landing on my website? Because that's huge. You want to drive them to your website, and using that information can really help.
And I think now there's a push for a lot more video content, for things that are animated instead of just still images. People's attention is harder and harder to get. So there's more you have to put into your posts to really capture their attention. Don't you see that as well?
Yes. Now, when it comes to blog posts, when it comes to on your blog, one thing that we suggest is if you're revisiting old blog posts, let's just say that ranked okay, but they could be better, and you go in and you're updating them. One great thing to add is video content, because if somebody is on your blog, they push play on that video, they're staying longer on your website, which is a good indicator to Google. Hey, thumbs up, this site is awesome. People like to stay on it. Now, where people get hung up is they're like, oh, I got to go out and I got to create this video. Not necessarily. I mean, there are so many videos that are already out there. As long as you're not taking videos that are from your direct competitors, you can go out and find great videos that you're giving credit to them because it's right there, right? You know, that you can include in your content strategy so that you don't feel like you have to do it all.
That's a really important point that you're making too, because I think sometimes people post a really good blog article and then they let it sit on their blog for years without doing anything to it. Google rewards you for constantly going and updating content, making it richer, adding more elements to it. You don't need to sort of rewrite the whole thing. You can just constantly be adding to it and making it better.
Yeah, one of the nice things about that, oops, I just dropped my earbud. One of the nice things about that is, let's say you take a post, and remember how you had made that comment earlier about having that social share function. So let's say you had that social share function on a specific blog post. And so you already had 100 shares on Facebook and 200 shares on LinkedIn. And you go and update that blog and change, build it out more, drop in a couple videos, maybe add some more graphics, update the content, update the date on it. When somebody goes to it, it's already got all that social proof. So here, the date might say it's from yesterday, because yesterday's the day I updated it, so I updated the date on it. But boom, it's already automatically got this social proof. If I end up on a blog post that was from yesterday that's already had 2,000 shares, I'm going to be more intrigued to continue to read on through it.
And I think what you said is so important too. You're not taking down the old post and posting a brand new article. You're simply updating the date along with the new content so you don't lose all that authority that you've gained over time. Because if you get rid of the old one, you're starting from scratch.
Exactly. Now, what I have seen that works well for other people too is, if you take content and maybe it's like 4 or 5 years old where people thought, oh, just having more pages was a better idea, which it wasn't, but some people thought that. So instead of doing a full lengthy, beefy piece of content, a beefy blog post, what they would do is do it in 4 or 5 parts. What you can do is really merge those together into a really cohesive, detailed, ultimate guide to whatever it is. And then obviously you have to redirect the URLs that you're no longer using, maybe part 2, part 3, part 4, part 5. But instead of those 4 or 5 blog posts competing with each other, they stand out on their own. It's all together and it's got more of the detailed information. It's a stronger post. It's going to do better online.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about it a lot, but really underlying all that is the keywords that you're going after, right? So you don't want blog posts competing against each other for the same keyword. If you've got content that's going after a keyword or a very similar keyword, think of combining those into one mega post, if you will, that's got a lot more value because Google will reward that.
Yes. And, I know we've been using, or in the realm of SEO, they've been using the word keyword for such a long time. And people that are coming, that are new into this, they're like, is that just one word? It doesn't mean it's one word. It could be, it's almost like you could say a topic or a searchable term. It's what you're going to type into Google. But here's the thing is, the more that you have, so we have that, go back to that mega page. You're going to have a couple variations or a couple sections on one specific topic on that page. So if it's on bike repair, I don't know why I picked that, but bike repair, and you're going through, you're answering in your subtopics within that one mega piece could also be searchable keyword phrases that people are typing in. So again, you don't want to have, I just did a blog post on bike repair. Well, now I'm going to do another exact blog post on bike repair. Maybe it's bike maintenance, so they can be bike or bicycle can be a keyword for both, but we're getting more topical.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And it's a simple strategy to really increase the value of your content. So, the third area that I kind of wanted to drill into with you a little bit more. So, we've talked about your website, we've talked about social media, but there are also some unique ways of getting ranked when you are a local business, a flower shop, a bike shop. Then you're talking about things like Google My Business, reviews, Yelp. Talk to me a little bit about things that you need to do if you are a local business to be found.
Okay. So whether you're a local business or not, you need a Google My Business listing. I was just putting together a couple of days ago a talk that I'm about to give at a conference, and it's all about how to dominate
Dominate.
the first page of Google. And by dominate, I mean have 2 or 3 spots on page 1 of Google, which is like everybody's dream, right? And you really cannot do that as a local business if you do not have a fully optimized Google My Business profile, if you're not collecting those rave reviews, and if your citations, which I'll tell you what those are in a second, don't all line up. And citations, you've maybe heard of them, called NAP, name, address, and phone number. It's a direct indicator to Google that you are a real legitimate business when all throughout online, your name, your phone number, and your address all match. So you want to make sure that you go in and look and see, oh, well, this one said unit number 1 instead of suite 1, or this one has our old address that we're no longer at, or our name here isn't really what our name is. You want to go in and make sure that everywhere online you have a unified presence along with on your website, where again it's an indicator to Google and to the world, right, that you are a legitimate business. So key for local businesses. You've got to do that.
And just by way of clarification, because this was interesting to me as I figured it out for my own company, but if you're a bike shop or a flower shop or a dentist, a doctor, whatever, and you have a physical location, Google My Business is great. If you are an accountant that works in a WeWork, not so great, right? Because it does require some physical presence. Do I have
So
that right?
you need the profile no matter what. You can say what areas you service, but whether even if you're not functioning locally, you should have a Google My Business profile. It's just one of those elements of Google. And listen, setting it up takes minutes. So it's really, why not? Why not? And the findability factor, we talked about findability when it comes to social media. In my opinion, Google My Business profile is like the easiest social media profile there is, because you're not posting to it continually. You can make announcements, you can do things, but just claim that spot. Just take the couple minutes that it takes. It's well worth it.
One of the benefits of writing great blog content is you potentially can be featured as a snippet, right? That top listing. So you could actually have 2 or 3 different things listed on that front page if you do it right. And I think as a local business, obviously, if you're one of those 3 or 4 businesses that is in the featured block on the Google search result, well, how many people do you think are going to click on one of those 3 businesses, more so than the guy who's on page 3?
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a really good point as well. Yes. And when you make sure that you're answering the questions that people are asking, it helps you get into that section. So when we're talking about, what was the bicycle
Yeah,
fixing?
bicycle shop. Yep. Mhm.
Okay, so bicycle repair. What questions are people asking about fixing their bicycle? If your blog post is answering those specific questions, it's going to help you. It used to be that years ago, if somebody were to go to Facebook, they would type in CEO Facebook if they were looking to find out who the CEO of Facebook was. But since voice search has changed things, it's completely changed how we search. Not even if we're just picking up our phone to talk into it to search, but people are more apt to actually type out questions. So answering those questions again gives you that ability to grab some of those top spots, but it also helps you climb the rank in Google because you're answering the questions that people are looking for, and it's again positioning you as an authority figure because you're answering their questions.
Which is again a service like Quora. It was just made for that, right? To answer people's questions and also
Mhm.
gives you the ability to drive a little bit of traffic back to your website. It's complicated stuff, but there is a formula. And if you follow the formula, it works. They don't make it secret. It's just it takes some time to put it together.
Absolutely.
So, Darcy, I'd love for you to share with the audience some of the programs that you offer your clients to be able to help them rank and be discovered.
Absolutely. So we have a DIY program called Ready, Set, Rank that walks you through the process of how to increase your presence online and tackle all the SEO stuff. It's got a tech library, it's got a step by step process just outlined to help you get some quick wins and long term planning in order. In addition to that, on our website, we've got free resources, free trainings, free guides. And if you're interested in Propel doing the work for you, you can always book a call directly on the website to talk to us about that as well.
So give us that website link and your social media links as well so that people can find you online.
Sure. Propelyourcompany.com is the website, and you can just search for Propel Your Company and you will find us.
Excellent. And I will have all of that linked up in the show notes so that people can find you in there as well. Darcy, this has been a fascinating discussion. I love talking about digital marketing and the things that businesses can do to be found and ranked, because that's really the goal, right? We want to help businesses grow.
Absolutely. Look, I mean, when you start a business, you have a passion, you've got something that just it needs to get out there. So you don't want to be hidden on page 4. So thank you today. It was a lot of fun. I appreciate it.
Hey, great. I appreciate your time. Thank you again.
Okay.